Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Nathalie Niddam, and as some of you might know, I'm the host of the Biohacking Superhuman Performance Podcast. And today, I have the pleasure of doing what I always do, which is asking questions. And so we have our illustrious panel here. We're going to be talking about glyphosate and how to biohack glyphosate, right? So before I say anything about that, I would like to introduce you to the people on the panel. To my right, we have Dr. Gus Vickery, who is a precision medicine doctor, and I need to look at my notes because I did not memorize these things. He is the speaker. He is an author, speaker, and founder and directing physician of Authentic Health, formerly Vickery Family Medicine in Asheville, North Carolina. This guy's the real deal, I'm just saying. He established his practice with a commitment to delivering holistic, compassionate, and evidence-based care. He now runs a successful practice focused on precision medicine, and the man's a rock star, so wait till you hear. He's doing some really cool stuff. To his right, the woman who made this all happen, Carolyn Allen, mineral geek and co-founder of BiMinerals. Carolyn Allen is health survivor and mineral geek. Coming from a career in the corporate world, Carolyn found herself struggling physically, mentally, and energetically. During her journey back to health, Carolyn studied minerals, how they operate in the body, why we need to supplement, and the benefits of plant-based mineral supplementation. This research into minerals led her directly into the issue of glyphosate exposure, which is plaguing modern humans. As a result of what Carolyn learned, she has become devoted to empowering others with that same knowledge, and that's why we're here today. And to the right of Carolyn, we have Matt Gallant, I probably say your name wrong. Do I say it wrong? Am I good? Okay, good. Matt Gallant, who is the CEO and co-founder of that company that we all know and love, BiOptimizers. He's got a bachelor's degree in kinesiology. He's been a strength and conditioning coach for multiple pro athletes, a self-defense instructor, and so don't mess with him, and has over 15 years experience formulating supplements. He's also a serial entrepreneur who's built over 13 profitable companies. So he's going to talk to us about some really cool stuff. One of the many cool things about Matt is he loves doing experiments.
My favorite thing.
Yeah. You want to see this man light up. You say, so what have you been doing in the lab lately? And then just sit back and enjoy the ride. So anyway, so this is going to be somewhat of a not traditional panel in the sense that I'm not going to be asking a question that everybody's going to answer, because we have three people here with distinct areas of expertise. And so some questions will be more relevant to some than others. I'm hoping they're just going to chit-chat amongst themselves, and the rest of us will just get to listen in on what they share and learn from it. So how many of us, this is a dumb question. How many of you are aware of glyphosates and how? Yeah, okay, good. That's why we are gathered here today, to talk about what the heck we're going to do about this issue. The reality is, glyphosates are here to stay. I was in London last week, and a woman came up to me who had just been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and it was the most heartbreaking thing. She said to me, I grew up on a farm. I live on a farm, and we believe that by living on a farm and growing up on a farm, we're living this wholesome life in nature, and we're protected. And as it turns out, all the farms around her spray glyphosate morning, noon, and night. And so here she is dealing with Parkinson's, as are many of her neighbors and other health issues. So the fact of the matter is there's no way to get away from it. And so what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about it a little bit, its origins, but we're also going to talk about what the heck we can do about it, because otherwise we just send you all screaming from the room and, doing bad, running out into traffic. So let's start with Carolyn. And that is not the point. So don't anybody leave early. You want to stay till the end so that you know exactly what to do. So Carolyn, can you take us through, really this is your jam, right? This is a big piece of what you do and why you do it. So can you just take us through some of the background on glyphosate and why the heck did anybody want to bring it into the world in the first place?
Yeah. One of the things, I actually talk a lot with farmers, and one of the things I want to remind people is that farmers are not bad people, and even the people who created glyphosate are not bad people. They didn't go create something that was going to ruin people. They actually thought they were going to help produce more food, and the idea was that they would create, they would create this herbicide that they could spray on the food that you eat, and the weeds would die, and the plants would live, so that they could produce more food more easily, okay? And the scientists originally thought that no problem, this glyphosate isn't going to affect humans, it only affects plants. Of course, we learned through all of Matt's great work that inside of our gut, what do we have? Lots of algae, protozoa, bacteria, beneficial bacteria, all sorts of things that do have the pieces that are affected really badly by glyphosate. When I first learned about glyphosate, I ran smack dab into this concept of GMO, genetically modified organisms. And we all kind of think, oh, GMO, bad, GMO, but GMO is not the problem. The problem is glyphosate. We've been genetically modifying foods for thousands of years and with really great benefit. Now I love the really big blueberries, the organic ones, but I really love that. But the real issue is glyphosate, because when they spray the glyphosate on the food using adjuvants and surfactants that make it stick to the plant and make it way more bioavailable, now glyphosate mimics an amino acid that is in your body. It's one of the most utilized amino acids in your body, called glycine, and I call it the Trojan horse method. Because it mimics glycine, it just goes right into your body. Your body cannot recognize the difference. I think
Amazing.
that's a good.
Thank you. So, you know, and this is a question you could all answer. Like, you know, I think when we talk, going back to GMO foods, unfortunately, the focus has been, can we make an apple that doesn't go brown? Can we make a tomato that doesn't get squished? There hasn't been a whole lot of focus on, can we increase the nutrient density of food? So maybe, do you see any movement, you guys, in industry towards using GMOs in a better way, maybe? Like, anybody? Matt?
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely. I think that we can really create superfoods with incredible properties, and that's one of our goals, is to do a lot of experiments, which is my favorite thing, and truly genetically modify or upgrade probiotics, for an example, foods in ways that truly create incredible health benefits. So, yeah, I think it's been done incorrectly, but there's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the motivations, right? It's all been done for the bottom line. And I do think, our food system is under such pressure right now that we're going to get to a point where hopefully we might come up with a different term.
Well, and there are ways with technical foods. We were talking about this last night. Technical foods and green powders, the greens powders, that don't have the bad nutrients, the phytonutrients, and they also don't have the glyphosate. Yeah. So, and this is a good one.
Okay.
That's good.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm good.
You're good? Okay, good. Okay, so so now I wanted to introduce this whole, I've got double mics. I don't need that. You guys can share that one. So now we get to this whole thing around, why did scientists think that glyphosate was safe in the first place? This has to do with this whole shikimate pathway, which I just like that word. I like saying shikimate. There's something about it. So shikimate pathway, super simplified explanation is it's a pathway in plants whereby they make proteins, and if you can block it, they can't make the proteins, and then they die. And they said, well, this is awesome. This is a perfect solution because animals don't use the shikimate pathway. So we can just dump loads of the buckets of this stuff all over the place, and we can create, hang on, wait for it, that. Right? So all we've got is corn and nothing else in the field. This is flipping awesome. What could possibly go wrong? So what could possibly go wrong is what Carolyn was alluding to earlier. So who would like to kind of expand on that a little bit? Do you want to talk about this at all?
Well, the thing that I could say that I think is really important for you to understand is there are a huge number of health correlations related to this simple thing of the shikimate pathway being inhibited, and glyphosate affecting things like the tight junctions in your gut, which creates leaky gut and gut dysbiosis, which is a huge pandemic that we are experiencing everywhere. And I really want people to understand that the young kids, are even more affected. Their bodies are smaller, their guts are more easily affected. Kieran Krishnan of Microbiome Labs did a study recently with 3-year-olds, and they gave them the very minute amount of glyphosate, and in 3 weeks, those children's healthy guts began to show signs of gut dysbiosis. Now, they were able to clear that and bring them back to a great healthy microbiome, but that's how much they're affected. And it's not only gut, it's also pineal gland, which is related to sleep, depression, cognition, and Alzheimer's. These are really huge effects. We know that there are correlations that have been litigated with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and Parkinson's. There's been $20 billion worth of lawsuits that have been paid out by the company, which we do not name. Did you want to say?
No, just talk about the gut a little bit. We've done hundreds, if not thousands, of experiments over the last 4 years on bacteria, and the gut's incredibly dynamic. The lifespan of a bacteria is about 48 hours. So literally every meal you're eating, every probiotic you're taking is constantly impacting your gut. So it doesn't take a lot to create dysbiosis, and the good news is you can fix it quickly as well.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Gus, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I will. We've developed a habit as a culture, a society, of taking shortcuts to achieve progress. And I'm going to admit that I've been along for the ride with many of the comforts and conveniences and things that I enjoy for progress. So I'm not anti-progress. But the more that you study human design, and certainly the more you just study organic life in general, you keep finding deeper layers of complexity. Really, it becomes what you realize is an infinitely complex system with all kinds of interdependencies that you could have never predicted. And so when we do something like say, well, there's this one cellular pathway that, I won't say the word because I always fumble that one.
Which one?
The
Shikimate.
Yeah, Shikimate.
I'll be the Shikimate.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Shikimate. That's one of those
practiced.
words that for some reason never sticks in my brain. But so if we're not only disrupting this one pathway, then we're not going to have any other impacts on a human system, which is truly infinitely complex. And it's that kind of reductionistic thinking to anything in life that ends up leading to a lot of problems for individuals. And so this, the principle would be one more of much more greater caution and understanding that there are variables we can't measure yet, and that actually restoring both our bodies and our environments to how they were designed would be the best path forward, but with the opportunities to use technology, as Matt just stated, to actually experience all of the progress in a way that doesn't end up creating a situation where our living habitats and the food that we're eating are slowly killing us rather than supporting our health.
Keep the mic. How are you seeing, so what are some of the ways that people would see the impact of glyphosate on their system? So how are, and I know that there's some that we know, hence the $20 billion, that are obvious, the $20 billion of lawsuits that have been won against Monsanto, but I'm allowed to say that word, aren't I? Okay. Whatever, we all know who it is, right? And then there's some less obvious ones, but maybe, I don't know who wants to.
Yeah, so I can just say what I observe in my patient population. And first, whenever I'm doing an evaluation and we have the toxicant panels and the gut panels and the lab panels and their genetics, we've got an enormous amount of data points. Glyphosate is one of them. And incidentally, how many of you have had your glyphosate levels checked? Okay. And did you have detectable glyphosate? Yeah, so that's been my experience. I've got about probably 300 accumulated sets at this point, and there's only been 3 that did not have alarming levels of glyphosate at intake. And some of these people are very sick and they're not aware of these things, and so we expect that. A lot of them are people who would come to a conference like this, and so they are aware and they're aware of food quality, and yet it's still there. And so it's only one data point, so I can't prove, nor would I ever try to state that all the other dysfunction that we identify in that system, the dysbiosis, the gut hyperpermeability, the gut inflammation, the elevated level of inflammatory cytokines, the metabolic dysfunction, the lipid particle dysfunction, the list goes on. And it's really shocking to the high performers when they get that data breakdown in a granular way and see all the blind spots they still have in their system. It's all fixable, like Matt said, real quickly in healthy people. Really sick people, it might take a long time, but it's still fixable. The body will restore health if it's given the opportunity to do so, virtually in every time. It's almost never too late. Sometimes it is, unfortunately. But so one, you got it, right? It's probably in your body if you haven't tested yet, unless you're doing something relatively extreme in how you approach food like I do. I was one of the 3 that didn't have detectable glyphosate, but most people probably don't want to approach food the way I approach it. We'll wait, hopefully Matt will have better solutions where you can enjoy food and not have glyphosate. But what we know is that, you know, this combination of dysbiosis, at the very least what we can say based on good scientific data is it definitely causes dysbiosis. We know that. It causes a lot of other stuff too, but what we can actually say is it causes that. The pattern of dysbiosis you'll see on a data set shortly, it's classic, and it's a pattern that also we have clear clinical links to obesity, metabolic dysfunction, and inflammatory syndrome. That's the glyphosate there. That's the patient I just saw right before Caroline asked me to step into this panel. It was a perfect case study, but it's actually like every case study. They all almost look the same these days, little nuanced differences. And we'll go through that in a little bit. But what I'm seeing is one, virtually everyone, unless they're doing something very special about it already, we'll talk about that, has high levels. Everybody who has high levels has dysbiosis at intake with the pattern that you'll see on this other study that is classic, and then most of them will have, at least in their lipid particles, some indications of insulin resistance, even if it's not glucose management issues yet. And usually they'll have inflammatory signal in their blood. It might be subtle, but it'll be there. So I know it's spilling into all of the diseases that we're trying to manage, including metabolic diseases and excess body fat, fibromyalgia, brain fog, de-energized states, mitochondria dysfunction, blah, 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 blah. The list goes on. It's affecting all of them. But it's only one thing we have to address. We can't just stop at glyphosate, but we have to deal with it. We have to deal with it.
I don't need that.
Yeah.
I have my own. Does anybody want to add anything to that? No? Carolyn?
That was fantastic.
Okay, so we've kind of covered all those bases. Okay, so we know it's a problem. Do you want to go through this case study maybe next?
Yeah, this is
You're kind of in flow here, so we're going to let you roll with it.
This is just a classic example. This is a 50-year-old, just signed up, new patient, lives in Utah, and athletic, and kind of pays attention to some of the podcasts that teach, like biohacking, high-end health stuff. And just wants to lose 25 pounds, like a lot of 50-year-olds and others, and would like to have a little more energy. But he's pretty picky about what he eats and all of that. So this was his tox panel. It's not the entire thing. We have heavy metals and a bunch of envirotoxins and also mold toxins. But this point of this talk is the glyphosate. So you can see there's some other toxicants we're going to have to work on, and that'll be both environmental mitigation, teaching him what he needs to do differently, but also clearing this stuff out of his system so he can get a baseline. And if you then look at his gut, the next one, which I know it's going to be hard for you to see this, and this is just a face sheet. I really like to look at the actual data, but the 3 main points on this face sheet, which are really important, if you look at the Simpson's index and Shannon's index, which are just overall big picture metrics around diversity, they're terribly low. His gut diversity is terrible. And then if you go over to the Firmicutes, Bacteroidetes ratio, is it on there? Yeah, you can't see it, it's in yellow. It's bad. And that is actually a well-studied phenomena, those 2 phyla, Firmicutes, Bacteroidetes, and the associations with both childhood obesity, adult obesity, and diabetes, and other glucose regulatory issues, and inflammatory disorders. So you can see he just matches across the board. And we don't have it's okay, it's fine. We don't have the picture, but if we had it, I could tell you that he's got broad-based lactobacillus species deficiencies, Bacillus coagulans is deficient, and significant overgrowth, one of a pathogen, Campylobacter, and I'll commonly see some pathogenic bacteria or fungi or something that's overgrown in this context too. But he also has overgrowth of a lot of anaerobic bacteria that are what we call normal commensal. They're supposed to be there, but they kind of become bullies when they get too big. And a lot of species that just can create problems that have known links to challenges, including things like Parkinson's disease and multiple sclerosis and all kinds of other bad stuff. So it's just a classic picture. I can't tell you that the glyphosate in his system caused that pattern. There's no way to prove it because there's so many other things going on. But I can tell you there's strong evidence that those 2 things are linked, and it's probably part of the problem. The other thing that we didn't include, just for time's sake, and I'll just be really quick, he had the full blood panel. And again, I can't prove the linkage here, but if you looked at his interleukin-6 level, his CRP level, both pretty high, oxidative stress markers elevated. And then while he did not have glucose dysregulation, his lipid distributions were clearly an insulin resistance pattern. Plus, he's got that 20 pounds of visceral fat, so we know he's got insulin resistance. So it's just a classic example, and it's basically par for the course at what I see for intake for most people, even if they don't have the 20 pounds. Are we going to take questions at the end?
Yes.
Yeah. And so then, and so we know that if he doesn't start fixing this now, right, one, he's going to have a harder time losing the weight because he's not fixing foundational issues that are affecting why he's not losing fat. But he could force it, and that's what people do. They force weight loss through pretty intensive body comp protocols. They could be quite good, but they don't fix this stuff first, right? Then they get confounded and are wondering, why is this so hard? It doesn't work. This never works. But if you just stay patient and you fix the foundations, you give the body the opportunity to function well again, replace what it doesn't have, because our micronutrient panels also show broad-based insufficiencies intracellularly, another piece of data we use. So you fix that, give the body back nitric oxide signal, glutathione signal, nutrient density that it needs to actually function, the structure and function. The calories, you don't really even need it because you already got them and you're trying to use them. You'll have to have them at some point, but that's not the most pressing thing. It's the nutrients. And then you get this stuff out of the system that's actually taking you backwards. Well, then a lot of times you don't even have to do extra special body comp protocols. The body just starts fixing itself. And people are just shocked within the first 3 months where I'm like, we're not pushing into body comp yet because we got to fix this. 3 months later, they're like, well, I already lost like 18 pounds. It's like really remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a really powerful statement, right? We often focus so hard on adding things. What can I take? What can I use? What can I buy? What's the supplement? What's the protocol? And if we haven't removed, right, those 5 R's of healing, if we haven't removed the offending compound to begin with, the thing that's driving the problem, it's just going to keep coming back, right? So I think that's a really powerful point.
And I just want to add one other thing, which is, we tend to focus on the gut when we're talking about glyphosate, and that is clearly a nexus of the issue that the toxicity creates. But another really important one to really think about is that one of the things that glyphosate does is it helps the bioavailability of aluminum, which is stored in the pineal gland. And so what happens is aluminum gets stored more readily in the pineal gland, which dysregulates sleep because that's where melatonin is produced. It creates mood disorders. It messes with cognition. It creates Alzheimer's. So the cognitive issues associated with glyphosate is really super important to think about. The other piece is, we have, I'm sure many of you have heard of the correlation between autism and glyphosate. What I want to clarify for people is it's not necessarily exposure of the child, it's exposure of the mother, the pregnant mother. So which is correlated with autism. All right, anything?
Well, I think we're going to flip to Matt now and talk about the experiments you've been doing, because we've now painted a pretty bleak picture. I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to go diving off my chair here. So
Yeah, a little bit
lead us out of the darkness, Matt, and help
Well,
us
some
out.
context. Caroline asked me if I wanted to speak on this panel. I said, I don't really have anything to say, but let me do a bunch of experiments in the lab, and if we find anything interesting, I'll hop on. So we tested.
I was the initiator.
Yeah, here we are. And we tested all kinds of enzymes. So we do a lot of enzyme experiments, probiotic experiments. And to my surprise, the enzymes actually did not work. You could certainly build or design an enzyme that would work, but none of the proteolytic enzymes actually worked. So I don't know if we want to hop forward.
Yeah. Sorry, I have to. We're not in order.
That's fine.
This one?
So anyways, I'm not going to get too deep into the actual test, but we prepared 5% glyphosate solutions and then tested a variety of probiotics against it. We tested 29 strains and 6 different formulas. Now there's something really important that I want to highlight. You see there's a bunch of different L-plantarums with CW006 or N13 or LP90. People don't realize the differences. Like we do a ton of experiments, and even though they're all L-plantarums, they're absolutely different from each other. Same thing with Acidophilus or all kinds of other strains. So what those means are those are patented strains. People have usually done genetic modifications to those strains, and they all behave very differently. On the right side, that's the key thing you want to pay attention to. It's a change in glyphosate concentration. You want to look for a minus. So in some of the concentrations, it actually went up, which was really interesting. But you can see the L-plantarum CW006, it went down 40%. The most effective one we tested, and again, we don't sell this strain, but it was the Lactobacillus gasseri LG08. It almost annihilated all of it. It was minus 99%. So incredibly effective. You can go to the next slide. Then Bulgaricus, minus 42%. Another plantarum did really well. Plantarum HHLP56, minus 96%. So those were the best strains. And then you go to the next slide. So then we tested our formulas. P3OM is an incredible strain, but it wasn't that effective against glyphosate, minus 10%. Cognibiotics, which is designed for the brain, minus 30%. The most effective formula was it's called Biome Breakthrough, the chocolate one, and it's a different formula than the vanilla, not just flavoring wise, but we have other ingredients, and it was able to break down 89% of the glyphosate, so it was quite effective.
That's very cool.
So come to our booth and pick some up.
What are the ingredients in that product?
So there's probiotics, but it's all the other ingredients in it that truly potentiate the probiotics. It's the best biofilm builder we've ever tested. So we have IgY max, we have collagen. There's a whole host of ingredients which makes the probiotics really happy. So we do a lot of experiments of feeding them different foods and trying to create an environment where they not just grow, but they colonize. And that's how you build a healthy gut.
So all right, so what are we going to do about this, right? So the good news is, first of all, Gus, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the testing. So there are ways to test glyphosate in your body, and these are tests that are readily available to you. Now I just have to, this is like a memory game. I have to remember where it was. There were.
Well, while she's finding that, yeah. So typically, you're going to test glyphosate through a urinary test. So it's not that challenging to get the sample and send it in. And there are a number of different labs that offer it. My panels, because I'm trying to get comprehensive tox on people, so I just use the Vibrant, which is a very good panel. It's more expensive, but you're getting heavy metals, 32 envirotoxins, and mold. So I'm always screening for all of that. But if you just were interested in glyphosate, only Great Plains has a
it's now called Mosaic.
Yeah, that's Mosaic. They've been doing this a long time. You can trust them. I don't know some of these other players. I assume they're good. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure Caroline has vetted them. That's the key, is vetting. I mean, this is really like pre-science science in a way, meaning who's validating how we're testing and what we're testing, what are the reference ranges. Well, frankly, I think any glyphosate is like too much glyphosate in the system, so as far as I'm concerned, the reference range could start there. But the bottom line is, if we have a reference range that picks up that minute of a signal, we're all going to be constantly chasing it, because we're going to have a small signal no matter what we do, probably.
And Gus is key, understands all about glyphosate testing in the body, but you can also test it in your food. Let's say you're going to the grocery store and you're buying non-GMO food. Now, the sad thing is that even if it says non-GMO, first of all, there's no actual policing of that. Anybody could take the non-GMO and put it on their product, and they do. So you can't trust it, but it is certainly a good direction to go in. But you can test your own food. There's this Greenpeace test strip. You basically take the food, you blend it, put a little water in it, and you put the test strip in, and it'll tell you level of glyphosate. It's very well regarded. You can also, if you have a backyard garden and you don't know if your neighbors are using glyphosate or if it's in the water that you're putting on your garden, you can test your soil. And with this, the RX soil product. So those are good ways to test.
Which I think is a really interesting point, right? If you're going to start a home garden, which a lot of people do, right? We're getting to the point where it's like, okay, you know what? I can't believe any of you people, so I'm just going to plant my own stuff. And if you're lucky enough to have even a small amount of property, the right sun, that kind of thing, you can. But testing your soil so that you're not actually, because the fundamental reality is that it's in the soil, it'll be airborne. If your neighbor's got his Roundup and he's running around his yard spraying and there happens to be a breeze that day, it's going to blow over onto your property. It's also getting into the groundwater. So doing that initial test and then remediating your own soil, and maybe we can talk about that, because there's ways, I think, Carolyn, you can talk about, there are ways to remediate soil, maybe not on an mass agricultural level yet, maybe there is, but certainly on a home plot, you can make your soil better.
Yes. And you know, one of the things, I'm going to talk about humic minerals, natural substance. One of the ways that I like to kind of frame the conversation is, you know, there have always been environmental toxins. You know, there were volcanoes and there was sulfur. There have always been environmental toxins. Of course, we as humans have created even worse environmental toxins. But Mother Nature actually provided incredible detoxification tools, and it's called humic minerals. And humic is a substance, and I won't go into yet exactly kind of how it works. Should I spend a little moment talking about that?
You know, may as well talk about it.
So humic is a large molecule, and inside, actually in humic, it's a crystalline substance, or you may have heard of it as shilajit. It's also the same substance in a different kind of delivery mechanism. But what we use in our products, it comes from something called humate. Imagine an entire rainforest that's decomposed over millennia into this crystalline, mineral-rich substance. It's called humate. And inside that, there are these two amazing molecules. One is called humic, and the other is called fulvic. And they're both key for detoxification. The fulvic is a very small molecule. It carries nutrients into the cell, but it also carries biowaste, toxins, heavy metals, glyphosate that's gotten into your cells out. It drops those off in the bloodstream, and then the humic molecule, which is a very different kind of molecule, it's large relative to a cell. It's got a huge amount of surface area. It's one of the strongest electrolytes known to man, and it's very sticky. And what it does is it adsorbs glyphosate. This is very important. What it does is it actually creates a film around the glyphosate, and once it's got that film completely around it, it begins to break down the molecule. And once it starts to break down the molecule, the glyphosate no longer can have its CP450 inhibiting effects, the other dysbiosis effects in your gut. This is so cool. The other thing that's cool is that when you urinate and pee out the glyphosate, it doesn't go into the water table as glyphosate that's causing problems. It's already broken down. This is one of the things I've talked about with Stephanie Seneff, who's truly the expert in glyphosate, is the systemic issue of we put the glyphosate on the food, we eat the food, now the glyphosate is in us, and then we pee it out, now it's in the water table. So this is a full circle event. So I say the beautiful thing about humic is, first of all, it's completely natural. It's what Mother Nature provided for full system detoxification. Your body already knows how to utilize it. And when you have it in there, it's already remediating the glyphosate in your system, breaking it down so that it doesn't complete the cycle.
Nice. Thank you. And then, Gus, I know that you use some different protocols in your practice as well. And I think, you know, maybe talking about when you have a patient that comes in and is showing very high levels, what you might do as an acute kind of approach, and then something that is more maintenance after that.
Yeah, so we get the data, we find it all, and it's clear we're going to need to deal with it. It's not good, so what do? And as Nathalie said earlier, if we don't have anything to do, why even bother looking, right? Like ignorance can be bliss sometimes. And that was actually my take until a few years ago, because I would study detox protocols for different things, and they were highly complex, and they were guesswork, and then you wait months, and then you retest. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, and I was like, that's exhausting. But it needed to be done, and I'm really grateful to the practitioners who would go do that grind. I just wasn't up for it. I had too much stuff to do. But as I begin to have every new patient do this full assessment, I wouldn't allow them to start with me if they just wanted blood test. I was like, if you're going to work with me, you're getting the full data set, because if you're really going to try, whether you're trying to restore health and solve problems, or you feel healthy but you're trying to optimize performance, as long as we haven't dealt with this stuff, you're always working against something, a variable in your system that is confounding you and your progress. You may think you're optimized, but you're not yet. Truthfully, we're never that all the time, even with all the BiOptimizers. There's always something that needs to be managed. But and so, you know, as I began to survey the patients, I was like, everybody's testing positive. At first, I distrusted the data. I'm like, come on, everybody can't have high glyphosate and have dysbiosis. This can't be the case. Hundreds of patients later, spending time in the research, networking with other clinicians, it's like, oh, well, this is just the lay of the land. This is what's going on. But the good thing is that certain companies, and there's a lot of them, I'm not here to tout any specific product, have come up with great solutions. Personally, I got introduced to a line of products by the company Cellcore. Cellcore produces really good detox protocols. Quicksilver does too. There's a lot of good ones. But what I found with Cellcore is, one, they had data where they could prove that if you match a particular binder or something to it, that you could detox this particular mold toxicant, or you could detox this envirotoxin. And then I got a chance to run my own data, start patients on 3-month protocols, and retest. And what we would see is not always clearance of everything, but often cutting it down 50%, 75%. And in some cases, if they had done their side of the deal, which was to clean up the environment and get rid of the plastics and blah, 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 we actually saw just almost optimal levels. Almost never. I've yet to find someone who can get rid of all the bisphenol A in their system. It just hasn't happened. That includes me, and I'm obsessive about this stuff. So we use this intensive detox process. Now, Cellcore, like the foundation of their products is fulvic and humic. Right, that is it. But then they add in certain chains of carbon and some other things, and and they have these heavier detox products. It is important to know this. If what's available to you is testing for glyphosate and then getting started, I think that's fine to detox glyphosate aggressively. But if you get a full panel and you got a lot of stuff, and you've got other systemic issues, like you haven't optimized glutathione availability, nitric oxide availability, fatty acid balances, cell membranes, and you just start trying to push this stuff out of your system, you'll create a lot of problems for yourself. So even though we have to deal with it, a lot of times there's a month of fixing other stuff before we can even start their detox, because we're just going to end up making them feel sicker. And they will anyway. Most people 3 weeks into an aggressive detox do feel bad. And I tell them your sweat's going to stink, your breath's going to stink, you're going to feel punky. It's just going to be part of the ride. See it through. Call me if it gets really bad. Take an aspirin. Call me in the morning, kind of thing. Yeah, I'm joking about the aspirin. But for some people, yeah. But anyway, so the point is that we have good protocols, and there's a lot of companies that offer them where you can definitely clear what's in your system today. The other side of that coin is you're going to get continually exposed. So you have to have a maintenance plan as well, which includes environmental mitigation. Do something with how you approach your environment, from air, food, water, where you live, all of that, to begin to mitigate, while you then also support your body. And people forget about this because as Nathalie said earlier, we're always like, what can I add in? Well, your human system was designed, just like Mother Nature gave us humic and fulvic, to already solve problems that we may have encountered. Well, your body has resilient, robust systems. Like, it can handle a lot of bad stuff and keep you well if it has what it needs to do that job. And so you always have to focus on optimizing nutrient availability, cell membranes through fatty acid balance, and also supporting glutathione, supporting nitric oxide. These are just like always, every day for the rest of your life. Do it, and your body then can handle it. Then you move into maintenance, which I personally think, and Caroline's here to be objective, but Beam Minerals, which has a nice, easy solution to use, the fulvic, humic, the all minerals, it's a beautiful solution. You can just take it every single day. It's affordable. It takes care of a lot of mineral needs in the human system. It's good for your biome, and it improves nutrient transport into cells so that you don't have to supplement as aggressively with other micronutrients, because now you're getting a more efficient movement into your cells of those key micronutrients. So I like the environmental mitigation, make changes to how you approach food and eating, and then use some form of fulvic humic complex on a daily basis. I like the Beam Mineral ones personally, but you can choose your own.
And you had a really idea with the water.
So, as it was mentioned, herbicides, fungicides, pesticides are oil-based. Now, if you take water, normal tap water, and you try to wash your veggies, nothing happens. The oil is basically stuck on the veggies, but there is a solution. If you have 11.5 pH water, something magical happens. It will emulsify the oils. Now, there's a water machine that I own. Again, I'm not here to promote the water machine, but it's called a Kangen water machine, Kangen. It's a Japanese water machine. And you can produce a variety of waters, including an 11.5. And when you put the veggies in it, it just pulls, the water just absolutely changes color and it pulls off a lot of the oils. So I think in terms of preventing the intake of glyphosates and other herbicides, fungicides, pesticides, it's definitely a good potential solution.
Yeah. You know, humic is actually considered by a lot of farmers to be a problem in their soil because it removes the glyphosate and the weeds grow. But the other issue is that the weeds are also very smart and they are changing, and so the glyphosate solutions that they have been using are no longer working, and they're having to then create even stronger or different mixes of herbicides to continue the work. But you can use humic on your soil in your backyard garden. It'll also help your plants grow. It'll really, your plants will absolutely love it. You should see my house plants and my garden. I used some humic when I was planting my beets. And I literally had a beet this big. I took a photo of it, so beautiful, and it tasted amazing. It absolutely increases the nutrient density in the plant, and you can taste it. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just going to finish up because I know that Gus had a couple of other suggestions and ways to, you know, Gus was talking about how you might not eat the way he does, but there are some hacks around your nutrition if you're really, and maybe it's when your levels are very high, and you might do this for a period of time to sort of mitigate your exposure to the glyphosate.
Yeah, of the 3 people who tested negative for glyphosate at intake out of hundreds, all of them kind of biohacked their diet. Now, what they didn't do is just use a lot of synthetic stuff to try and give their body what they needed, but they essentially skipped, eating a lot of produce. Well, one, they would not eat non-organic produce, period. They just weren't. They weren't going to eat any highly processed, mass-produced food. Not when you're on vacation at some resort or whatever. Yeah, just eat, have freedom. And this is an important point because this could start to sound really depressing. On the other side of this, when you arrive there and your body's functioning well and it's detoxed and you've upregulated mitochondrial function and you're more efficient with your mitochondrial function and you're able to generate more ATP, maybe out of less, it seems like. We're really puzzling over that one, whether we've got those equations right or not. All of a sudden, you have freedom. Yeah, your daily pattern, what you do consistently is what's going to be important. How do you go, whatever it is, Monday through Friday or whatever, when you're in your work zone or your productivity zone? How do you take care of your body during that time? Then you're going to go meet friends out at some restaurant. And I'm not for people saying, well, where did this food come from, and what did you put in it, and can I have, unless you've got a true food allergy or something like that, that's a legitimate reason to do it. It's just relax and eat. Your body can handle this. It's no problem, And so if I go to some friend's birthday party and they have birthday cake from a grocery store, I'll eat it, whatever. If I want to eat it, if I'm in the mood for cake,
Well, what are the other things?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So the point is that you have, you have freedom, right? If you deal with this, you get the freedom to go eat and feast when you want to and not stress out and worry about it because your body can handle it. So in the meantime, what do we do? Well, we use formulations that are food-based, blends of fibers in a powdered form, blends of phytonutrient in powdered form, organ meat capsules, powders, or eat organ meats. Even animal products are a little bit of a challenge in this particular area, so you have to be really careful about that as well. Making sure you're getting essential fatty acids at least through supplementation, phospholipid complexes, omega-3s in various forms, plant or animal-based. And you get the idea, right? So we're just basically going ahead and essential amino acids. It's one of my favorites. So what we're doing is we're going to go ahead and say, hey, look, there's these two things our body needs from food. Outside of the social and enjoyment of it and all that, the two things we need are, one, energy, calories. A lot of people are overestimating that side of what they need. And then nutrients, the actual things that allow the structure and the function of the human system to continue to carry on. Right? The nervous system is more interested in those nutrients as long as it has adequate reserve calories. Right? So what is driving most hunger, other than just habit patterns, is not searching for more calories. Your brain's searching for food because it's searching for essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, and other micronutrients. So like, can we just fix that one piece? Can we just say at baseline we've done it? And I didn't know when I started this would it work or not, but I tried. And so we said, let's just biohack the diet through elixirs and potions and capsules, and as much as possible get it all from food, whatever form it comes in. And it worked. Micronutrient panels looked good, people felt good, tox panels looked good, right? So that's one potential solution. And then you could still eat, food, but you could be a lot more pickier about like what you were going to eat, so you could make sure that it was good. Then you add in fulvic humic complexes consistently. Now I'll be super excited about the probiotic strains, right? Because then we start adding those in, and the more tools like that we have in the mix, the more freedom we get to how we broaden out our diet and not get afraid of the produce section in the grocery store. I'm not into fear. I don't think you should be afraid.
Yeah, and I think, what Gus is saying, and did you guys all get this? So a good powdered greens formula, a good powdered reds formula. There are some really good ones out there. I'm sure some of you are using them. And if you kind of cover your bases every morning or every day with these products, it kind of allows you to then not be bound to having that salad if you don't want it at lunch because you're not in the right place for it and you can't access the right thing. Okay, so I think that kind of takes us to a natural end. Are there any questions? Like, is there? Yes. So here, yeah, I'm bringing you the mic.
Okay.
You got it?
Have you tested any of your products clinically where you actually show that the glyphosate levels actually go down?
No, this data just came out of the lab like 6 weeks ago.
Nat, I can just talk.
I think we should probably do more questions.
Well, no, about testing.
Yeah.
So there have been a lot of, several tests, quite a few actually, with animals showing huge reduction I think we have some on the slides. We don't have to bring them up. There's been some chicken studies where they fed glyphosate. Their feed is glyphosate-ridden, and when they fed some of the chickens to the humic, their meat, both when they harvested the chickens, the actual meat had great reductions. You can see the reductions in the meat. So it is really important with the meats that you eat to see if what they're being fed. And even if it says grass-fed, it has to be grass-finished. That is very hard to find. Thank you.
So I'm a big proponent of the essential amino acids and everything as well. And I believe that as well, correct me if I'm wrong, can help kind of detox if you get enough of them. What's your opinion on supplementing with glycine for the detox?
I actually like it. I like the studies that have, the most recent one out of Baylor, everybody's just going nuts over, which was a study looking at NAC and glycine in conjunction together. And it makes sense why you would pair those two things together, but kind of having an actual measurable impact, which is good. I like glycine for the brain, for sleep at night. I like glycine for a lot of reasons. So personally, like for me, and any patient who doesn't care about taking a few extra capsules, along with their essential amino acids, we throw glycine in. We throw, make glutamine if we're trying to deal with gut issues where they have low glutamine. So I'm a big fan.
And when you actually supplement with glycine, so you have glyphosate that's mimicking glycine, if you're actually supplementing with glycine, your body will absorb less glyphosate. Yes.
And of course, collagen, like the collagen products are very rich in glycine, which is maybe a better way to get it. Yeah.
Well, sleep breakthrough, we had 3 grams of glycine. Yeah, I'm a super fan of glycine.
It's a great product, by the way. Sleep breakthrough. Yeah.
Okay, I have a few questions. One is, if you test your water and you do like to garden and you find glyphosate in your water, how are you getting that out? Secondly, just brands of the red and green powders and amino acids you like. And thirdly, for Matt, if you saw levels of glyphosate increase with certain probiotic strains, what is the explanation behind that?
Don't know.
Because that's scary, some of the numbers on there.
Yeah, it was a lot of times we find stuff in the lab, we're like, we don't know what's going on, and we got to do a lot more experiments to figure it out. So.
So actually, this is a great question. I haven't thought about the water. We don't deal with it much in the area I live. Obviously, I just recommend everybody completely filter their water, always, all water. And my understanding of most filtration systems, including carbon, that are really good quality, that you're eliminating glyphosate with that. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Reverse osmosis.
For their garden.
Yeah, that's a great, yeah.
So that's when you have to remediate the soil.
Yeah.
So again, if you're using humic on your soil with your amending your soil with humic, now you, again, as I said, the farmers consider it an issue because it remediates the glyphosate.
Yeah, actually, those little sprayers where you mix your chemicals to like spray on your, instead you'll just put fulvic and humic in there and have that go out with the water instead of the chemicals. As far as brands, there's a lot of great ones. So I hate to get brand specific. What we use most of the time, just because they're good, Athletic Greens. I'm a big fan of that product. It's really well done. And then there's a little company called Body Health. They make Perfect Amino and a lot of other niche products. Their reds and greens formulations are phenomenal, and they're never freeze-dried. So it's really well preserved, small batch stuff. And then
Thomas Cowan stuff.
yeah, I love his stuff, and that's a great way to get more plant foods in. Like Thomas Cowan's garden products are amazing and wonderful ways to like sprinkle stuff in. And then Thorne has a new greens product that's pretty good too.
Designs for Health has a good one. They have reds and greens.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of them. Yes, sorry.
My question
One more.
would be
Okay.
if there are two foods that you think we should avoid to limit our exposure. In my mind comes to me corn, but I don't know if you guys agree. And then
Oat milk.
And then the second one, oats. Okay.
Because when they harvest the oats, they then leave it on the field. They spray it with glyphosate as a desiccant to dry it more quickly. So never, never, never eat inorganic oats.
Yeah, if any of you are going to spend the money on a test to test your food, don't bother with oats. Right? Don't bother with corn. It's positive, right? Test the other stuff.
The other thing is butter. Organic butter only.
Yeah.
And cream, heavy cream, only butter and heavy cream, only organic.
And there was a study, and I can't remember the exact details, of just comparing people who ate only organic, period, versus those who did not. And I might be misquoting the statistic, but it was somewhere in the 70 to 85% range of a reduction in glyphosate levels in the people who at least just stuck with the organic.
Quick hack I wanted to share in case you don't have a Kangen water system. You can throw a tablespoon of baking soda in a gallon of water and a tablespoon of bean minerals and just let it sit for about 5 or 6 hours and circulate, and then you can chunk all your veggies in. It emulsifies everything, takes it out, good to go. See you later.
Boom. Thank you, sir. Wait, hang on. There's a lady at the front, and then I'll come back. I don't know how much longer we have the room for. Here you go.
My main question is, okay, I have a young one, and goldfish and all the things that you can't get away from, even if you buy the organic ones, and I spend my time. What are some of the products that would be soft on a tiny tummy to mitigate this? Because now I've gotten to the point of buying my own mill and buying wheat to mill so that I had cancer. So I don't want this for my son. Only by like some luck of a miracle am I still here to even have this conversation. But he's got a long life to live, and it doesn't matter. I buy the organic, and it's like, Mommy, I want goldfish. I'm like, but we don't want goldfish. Because they're so high. I look at the parts per million. I've changed the breads. All the things that kids want to consume, even when you do your best. What is the product that is safe and not too harsh on their little tummies?
Well, I have a 14-month-old daughter. I've been feeding her Biome Breakthrough since she's 3 weeks old. She hasn't been sick. She's growing like crazy, super happy. So again, I'm not a doctor, and this is not medical advice.
Don't know much about food.
It's not medical advice, but yeah, I am feeding Biome Breakthrough to my daughter. So yeah. It's one of our products, yeah. It's the same one that breaks down the glyphosates.
I also say, you know, the
It's a BiOptimizers product.
You're gonna have a busy day.
one of the beautiful things about the humic and fulvic, the B Minerals products, is they're liquid and they taste like water. And I cannot recommend them more for your children. We've been doing some studies with some groups in a group in Salt Lake that works with children with behavioral issues, and there is absolutely correlation between ADHD, bipolar, lots of mood and sleep disorders with children that are happening. You know, it's just on the rise, and they have found huge impact. They basically include B Minerals in every patient protocol every new protocol. Yeah, it's.
They don't have a massive die-off or like.
Yeah, so you just, if you come to the booth, we can talk about it, and I have protocols.
And I will just say that I have 3 teenagers, not little ones anymore, but my entire family has been trained and does it. Everybody goes and gets their little half ounce of each B Mineral solution every single day before they walk out that door. And I didn't have to reinforce it over and over again once they made a habit. One, because it doesn't taste like, it looks like dirt water because it's dirt water, but it tastes fine, you know. And they also, like my son, like getting a cramp in basketball games. He noticed that went away. My daughter's migraines dropped tremendously, so it really helped. Sorry. I was just saying personally that I have my entire family, including my 3 teenage kids, basically taking the B Mineral solutions every day. And they can talk to you about dosing. Mine are all like bigger kids now, so they're a half ounce of each one a day, which is the standard dosing.
What's your booth number?
It's 714. And the other thing to really remember is your pets, your dogs.
Yeah.
When you take your dog out for a walk, their nose is right down where all the glyphosate is, all of the runoff, all of your neighbors spraying for weeds. So the veterinarians came to me and they said, we need to have your minerals for our pets. So we created a pet line, which you can also use.
Okay, I think we have one more
I think-
question and we'll be.
What was the name of the Japanese water?
Kangen.
Oh, Kangen.
Kangen, K-A-N-G-E-N.
Oh, there's one more.
One more? Yeah.
K-A-N-G-E-N.
Well, we're actually in the process of creating a garden for backyard garden. We decided not to go with the big ag because it's just too big. But we are coming out with that. You can use our minerals for your soil. And if you just come to the booth, I'll talk to you about how to do that. 714.
714.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.